From the Foundation Studio right here on Biloxi's Back Bay, welcome to Super Talk Outdoors, where we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime the incredible outdoors of the state of Mississippi. I want to thank you for joining us on the powerful Super Talk Mississippi Radio Network, or C-Spire TV, at Super Talk TV. But if you're listening on Facebook or YouTube or your favorite podcast, it is April the 11th, 2022, Easter next weekend. It's amazing. Time is flying by so rapidly. I spent the weekend at my place in the Delta. The weather was great. It was nice and cool. We spent a lot of time just going around checking things out. Some of the areas that we went to are still pretty wet, actually, from the recent rains, the weekly rains, I might add. And some of the roads and trails actually were blocked by downed trees. These intense winds, man, they have really done their share of damage. But, that's the way it is. We've got our work to do, but, we're sort of used to it this time of year. Gives us reason to head back up there and enjoy this incredible place. It's that time of year, though. If you think about the alluvial soil of the Mississippi Delta, it comes alive this time of year as farmers are doing their planting, and that's what you see all over the Delta now. Springtime in Mississippi. My friend Terry Waldrop and I, and our friend Keith Connor, who's one of our neighbor friends up near our place in the Delta. He's a highway patrolman, I might add. We drove over to Leland to visit with my friend Steve Azar. He had his Mockingbird Songwriters Festival there, and it was, like I said, it was great weather, perfect weather for an event like that. And it was held at the farm, on the farm, at the spectacular Gin at Dunleith in Leland. That's a great venue, incidentally. We had a really good time. Great to visit with Steve. Stopped and ate at NOLA in Indianola on the way back. Had a great dinner. I got back to the coast yesterday and did some yard work, but that's what we do this time of year, isn't it? We do yard work. So it was overall a great weekend. I hope you had a great weekend yourself, doing something amazing in the outdoors. In a lot of places, there is no Wi-Fi in the woods, or there's no Wi-Fi offshore, but you definitely get a better connection there. That is for sure. What a beautiful day it is now in Mississippi. But we got some rain. We got more rain coming, more wind coming by midweek this week. It's incredible. That's sort of a weekly deal now, isn't it? As the weather warms up in coastal Mississippi, fishing is going to be heating up as well. So we're going to be talking more about the incredible saltwater fishing in future shows here on Super Talk Outdoors. I'm really looking forward to those conversations. It's just, we have some of the best fishing in the world here, and I can tell you my boats are ready to go. In the second half of the show, we're going to be talking about the state parks. It was a real transformational legislative session from a state parks point of view. We'll talk more about that with our guests here in the first half. So now, without any further ado, let's turn over to my friend, Lieutenant Governor of Mississippi, Delbert Hoseman, and say, good morning, Delbert. How are you?
I'm doing good. We're dry here in the Capitol, although it's raining outside.
I know it is. I know it is. Hey, listen, Robin Williams once said this: spring is nature's way of saying, let's party. I wondered if, every spring this time of year, coming toward the end, as you get to the end of the legislative session, is that how you feel? You feel the kind of a kinship with spring?
I don't know about that. This was a pretty tough session. So we're all kind of struggling to try to review what all got done. And then, of course, we've already started on what we're going to do next year. We have a list of things that we want to get through that we didn't get through this year. Wish we'd have gotten done more one way or another. So particularly interested in the parks. I'm glad you mentioned that. As you know, back in February, I never could get a good number, Ricky, on how much we have to spend for the parks. So Liz Welch works for the governor, is a great lady, and she authorized us to get 4 architects. And we went to every park in Mississippi and did an analysis of what it's going to take to bring them up to speed, up to something you'd be proud of. And the number is, cut to that part of it, the number was $160 million. So we then started on a process to raise money, and in this year's ARP budget, we got $28 million, plus we put another $10 million in from our general funds, running right at $38 to $40 million to start on fixing up our state parks. That will start right away. In conversations this week with Lynn Posey, who's their executive director right now, we felt like it might be best to just hire some construction manager to just start that process as opposed to waiting longer. Those funds will be available July the 1st. So I've talked with him about that. He and I met, I guess, this week about that, and then I'll be talking to the board about it this next week in the hopes that they'll start this construction with the $40 million, basically $40 million we've already appropriated, but also there are about 100 of these, which are programs that you can match. And talking to James Cummings, who's a big friend of yours, I know, James says he thinks he can get a match for the 40 million. So we'd be able to start with 80 million and hopefully get half of our parks done one year and then come back next year and get the other half done. And so we're really excited about our parks and recreation. I think that's going to be very special. And then we have a big announcement coming. Actually, they're at my house tonight, and then we're announcing it in the morning. A world-renowned golf person, I think I'm going to let them announce it, but a world-renowned golf person will be at the house tonight and looking at redoing the LaFleur's Bluff golf course. And it is a spectacular announcement. I'm really excited about having them here. The legislature appropriated a slug of money for LaFleur's Bluff this year to redo their golf course, and this will be the official announcement in the morning.
Yeah, $13.25 million, man. That's no small amount. That golf park is about to get transformed, isn't it?
It is. It is going to be awesome. We have a young man from Brookhaven that actually does these nationwide, is actually doing the preliminary design, and this, I'm going to say, world-renowned architect will be announcing that tomorrow. He'll be in this afternoon about 3 o'clock and be working on the property, and then also have the announcement at 10 a.m. tomorrow. But with that, I think we're going to do something that all of Mississippi will be very proud of.
Well, you mentioned James Cummings from Wildlife Mississippi. As you did, I did as well. Get an education from him about the role conservation, the role states can play in conservation. He literally wrote the book on it, and what he taught me about. One of the reasons I was so high on this Outdoor Stewardship Fund, which we'll talk more about in the second half, our second segment, is that the amount of federal funds that you certainly saw as it related to parks, but just in general, in so many different buckets, the fact that these guys have such insights into this because what's happening across the United States now and other states, it bodes well for Mississippi as we go forward, as we get smart about how we work hard to take a dollar and make it mean a lot more. I mean, there are some significant funds out there, aren't there?
Yeah, they're literally billions of dollars. And after I went over with James, this is a list. I'm going to send it to you, by the way. I'm publishing this today. James said it was okay to do so, and it's broken down on who can apply and whatnot. I'll send you a copy for putting on your website. I know so many conservation people look at it as well. But you'll see that so much of this is now available for not only the states, but individual private landowners. Yes. And apply for this. And it's not just the CRP and the WRP, the things that we've known before, but there are all kind of energy programs and watershed rehabilitation programs. And they have like $225 million, and you have to apply for them. I can go down this list, everything from solar to water. There are various government programs available for all of culvert removals. You just pick it. So yeah. I'm going to publish this out, and meeting with Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, they're going to look at hiring somebody to just write the grants.
Yeah.
That also would apply to just an average person who owns 250 acres out somewhere. So I encourage everybody to look at the list. It would be hard not to qualify on this list. I'm just putting it that way.
It is. It's really important. And again, we'll get more into the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund here in just a second. Let's take a step back for a second. You heard me talking about the Mississippi Delta and what it means to Mississippi and springtime and the way the Mississippi, the changing of the season, so to speak. But when you hear that, the outdoors means a lot to you, doesn't it?
It does. We have, we've been hunting in the Delta since I guess the 60s. And we've had just wonderful experiences from Satartia and Holly Bluff in the south, where we hunted some this year, all the way up to Webb and Sumner, and then north of where you are in the north part of the Delta, and particularly had great hunts with Mike Doyle and his son at Beaver Run this year, which is all the way up in Tunica. So I guess I hunted all over the Delta, from the South Delta to the North Delta this year, duck hunting mainly. And then I have a place that I have developed for deer hunting and turkey hunting that I work on all summer, same as you do, clearing trees and cutting and running the bush hog. That's probably the only same time I get really is on my John Deere tractor. So yeah, I do have a great opinion, and it's just invigorating to me. I like to go running in the morning. I jog in the morning. You watch the world wake up, and the birds are flying, the geese are going, and all this other kind of stuff. It's just, I think it's invigorating, and it reminds us how important it is for us to leave the planet a little bit better than we found it.
Boy, is it. There is no doubt. In fact, I mentioned a few minutes ago that where we have no Wi-Fi, we can find a great connection.
Very good.
It might be with God, or it might be with our family and friends. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hoseman. See you after this.
Today, leading the conversation on Mississippi's outdoors. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I'm thrilled and honored to have the Lieutenant Governor from Mississippi, Delbert Hoseman, with me today. And when we went to break, we were just sort of sharing our love of the outdoors and this fact that when you don't have Wi-Fi, you can still find a great connection. That is really so true, though, isn't it?
It is. I think I'm going to plagiarize that comment. That was very well said. I do. It allows you to visit and watch what God created, and then see the progress. If you plant, I like to plant trees and stuff, and you watch them grow, and you do the things. I plant for ducks. We put up stuff for ducks and that kind of thing, and watch that grow and get ready for the season. It's all pretty magical to me.
It is to me too, man. It really is. I said about this session this year, and you and I talked about it early on, that it was going to be one of the most consequential sessions we've dealt with in a long time, with all these incredible, important issues, the amount of money, the state's doing well financially. Then you had all this federal money that related to COVID that was coming down. A lot of different ideas about how to proceed, but at the end of the day, that's the democratic process. That's the way it works. It's democracy in action. Sometimes can be tough to watch, but it is that slowness of the process is the way we keep from making big mistakes. But it was a consequential session, wasn't it?
It was. I don't think there's ever been one that I have read about or have lived during my lifetime that was as consequential as this one. We did everything from the state song to medical marijuana. We did everything from equal pay to the largest increase for teachers ever, $250 million since I started. We did roads and bridges all over Mississippi, $3 billion. We did county roads and bridges, another $100 million. We did child protective services. We did mental health, just critical, everything you can think of that you could bring before a public body, pretty much came this year. And there were times, I'm not saying it was an easy session by any stretch of the imagination. Everybody had their own idea. I have 174 people up here, and I guess we had 200 ideas. Some of them have changed. But we worked through all of those, and I think our money was spent well. Our issues are not now will be really to follow up and make sure it gets spent well. But we fixed water and sewer and broadband all over Mississippi. There's now a broadband department in Mississippi. You can just go on and on about how many difficult issues you would normally attack a road or a education issue, one or two of those in a session. This time we did everything. I mean, from marijuana, you pick it. So I think I'm pleased with where we did. Some things I want to do next year. Some things I was hopeful we'd do more of this year. But by and large, there's never been a session like this one. And I think under any stretch, it was successful.
Well, it's so interesting because just when you think there's no way they can find agreement on whatever you name the subject, it just somehow works out, doesn't it? You see that in every session.
You do, and that's the give and take. And I didn't get everything I wanted. They didn't get everything they wanted, and we balanced out. From the tax thing, which was a huge amount. eventually in 4 years, we'll be having like $500 million a year in less taxes to things that we thought were important. Education, we devoted a lot of money to education and improvement of education across Mississippi, not only in teachers, but in buildings and in private colleges got money from all kinds of different things like that really will make a difference. Your analogy about the spring is really important here. What we're doing with education and so many of these roads and big things that we're doing, we're planting the seeds for the future, Ricky. Now, out of this 5, 10, and 15, 20 years from now will come the growth. And growth is really silent, like you see on your place. You don't see that growth silent, but all of a sudden you see the big tree, and you see the people being able to get a job, and you see the travel, and you see the parks being done right, and you see the outdoors being done right. You see all of these things, but you plant those seedlings with education money, infrastructure money, those kinds of things that we did this year. And I'm real excited to see where we'll be. I've got 7 grandchildren. I'm really excited where we'll be 3, 5, 10, 20 years from now. A lot of these decisions were much longer term, and we had the money this year to do it, and I think we planted the seeds this year.
Yeah, that's why, there's no question about it. So much of the work that you do, and I say this on the show here all the time, that we're not going to talk about legislature too much, except when what happens in Jackson matters to outdoorsmen. But, and no other place can that point be clearer than the generational investments that we make in the outdoors and how that will pay back in the future. Because, as you know from your years of hunting, one of the biggest issues we faced is the loss of habitat, and that's a big issue. Anything we can do to invest in our parks and recreation and in land in Mississippi to give us an opportunity to leave a legacy for our grandkids, that's incredibly important, isn't it?
It is, and it's the seedlings for the future. And part of this, which you've been really good about, is to realize when people are going to come to a state or stay in a state, they have several things they want. They want an education, they want a safe environment, they want infrastructure to get their product, but they want that cultural aspect. Now, the coast has Mardi Gras. They start spring a little early, so they've got Mardi Gras, which I came to this year. They've got so many things, outdoors fishing out on the Cat Island, which you now own. All of those things are part of your culture. And as we develop parts of our culture, the state parks become really important, not just Buccaneer down there, but Tishomingo all the way north and all the other state parks. They need to be a place that people with average income can go spend the weekend with their families, fish, hike in the woods, appreciate nature. Those cultural parts of our anatomy are really important to me, and I think we made a great step forward this year.
So we got the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund done. We found agreement. We're going to, this is landmark legislation. It's going to create an opportunity for Mississippi to have the matching funds that will allow us to draw down those federal funds. We had hoped for $20 million. We ended with $10 million, but it is a substantial moment, and it gives us something to build on. What's your thoughts about it?
Well, as you know, I proposed a $20 million. So the first request I think was for 7 a year, and then building to 14, then to 20, and I wanted to do the full 20 to start. But in the fog of up here, in the settlements of the final negotiations, it came out with 10 million. You're right; it's a good start here. We're already in April. We'll be back next January, and I intend to propose to fully fund it completely. I think where we're really important now would be to pick our 7 members. I've got 3 picks, and one of them has to come from the coast. So I would ask anybody that listens to your show to please send me an application if you'd like to be appointed. I'd like to have my appointments done before the legislature becomes effective, which is July the 1st. So you'll probably hear me doing my appointments within the next 3 to 4 or 5 weeks or so. I want to get all 3 of my men and women or whomever we pick up. And then I hope the governor will do the same so that they can start the process of picking and choosing. By the time they do that, they'll probably be towards the end of the year, and we'll be able to fill up the full 20 million.
Well, I'm excited about sort of where we are because you mentioned James Cummings, but the other organizations that are doing this kind of work in other states, that we've had the opportunity. Georgia has been a great example, by the way, because they've shown us how they took 20 million and turned it into nearly 100 million, and they've been extraordinarily open. I think they've even traveled here. Certainly, we've had people travel there, but there's been a lot of sharing of information back and forth, and we've really got an opportunity to tap into a lot of the innovation that's been happening across the country, particularly in the Southeast, and start to really figure out how we can really push the envelope on innovation and make it competitive. I mean, I think it's great. The more people who come to the table with projects, the better off. I think this new board, this oversight board, both with voting members and non-voting members, this oversight board is going to have a lot to say grace over.
I do too, and that's why getting the 10 million, while I was disappointed a little bit, I think we will end up, it'll be by the end of the year before they start really picking their projects and whatnot, so we'll be able to refill the bucket pretty quickly in the first of next year. But yeah, the start of this is really important. We have a good history here. Our lottery board, our gaming board, all of our boards we've appointed over the years have been very effective. I'm particularly interested in this. I plan to go to some of the meetings personally. I want to make sure that they're getting the full support of the state government when they go forward in picking these projects. And, if we're a little bit short one year, we want to make sure we put in enough where they can do what they need to do.
Yeah, I think I appreciate the fact that you say that you're willing to go. There of all the projects, you mentioned lottery, and of course you mentioned gaming, but of all the things that we've done in recent past, the interest in this one is going to be very significant. People are going to, frankly, as much work as it took to get this done, and now that we've got so many people, sort of aligned around it, they've got to come out of the gate, knocking it out of the park for the state of Mississippi. And I know I'm certainly going to be paying close attention to it. Listen, we're running out of time, Delbert. It's been a great to visit with you. You can, final word from you.
Well, I'm excited about this, but I'm also excited about the whole session. I think Mississippi should be proud of their legislature. Your coast delegation was outstanding this year. We just had there's a lot of additional funds going to the coast. So we're really pleased with the session. We look forward to working with you. And if you have any nominees, make sure you get one in.
Okay, thank you very much, Delbert. Have a great day. When we come back, we're going to talk parks. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I really enjoyed that conversation with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hoseman. Man, what an incredible session that was. And at the end of the day, as he pointed out, we would have liked to have gotten 20 as the first year for the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund, but 10 is a great start. It puts the wheels in motion, and next year's legislative session, we can get alignment around fully funding it, because the reality is that we're leaving currently about $40 million on the table, if you just look at on average what other states are getting. So by having 10 instead of 20, we're going to be pulling down less federal funds, and we'll be focused on that as we go forward. But now we can put the mechanism in place. We can get everybody aligned around it. We can get organizations working on finding the federal funds and the kind of innovative projects that are going to make a difference. And then next year we'll continue to work on getting it funded as much as possible. So great conversation. I really enjoyed that. We need great leadership in the state to be able to make this thing work. So now let's shift gears. I want to move over to my friends Brian Ferguson and Angel Ronke. And they are with the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. Angel actually works at LaFleur's Bluff. We'll talk a little bit more about what her job is in just a second. And Brian is Deputy Director. So anyway, how you guys doing this morning?
Doing well.
Doing really great. Thank you.
It was it's always interesting during the breaks. It's always interesting to get this opportunity to visit a bit. But we got to, the Lieutenant Governor had not gotten off yet, and you guys were on. You got a chance to say hello to each other. It was, he's obviously incredibly interested in parks. The legislature did well by the parks this year, didn't it, Brian?
Absolutely, did a great job. This is one year I think that we've done we did a great job this year, having a lot of communication. I think the Lieutenant Governor had a lot of great questions, and I think for the most part, we were very pleased with what they've done this year for state parks.
So, Brian, when we went to the session, most people sort of know that, at least people who go to parks on a regular basis, there was some work we needed to do to bring them up to not just standard, but make them something that everyone can be proud of. And so the opportunity to come out of the gate spending nearly $40 million on state parks. And, my sense is there's going to be that kind of commitment for subsequent years as we, continue to put the focus on, if you really want to enjoy, the public land opportunities in this state are just incredible. But if you want to enjoy them, the state's going to be your partner and be committed to helping bring them up to just not just standard, but above standard. You think about, as the Lieutenant Governor mentioned a few minutes ago, Angel, we can't speak to what's going to get announced in the next day or so as it relates to a golf partner for the golf park at LaFleur's Bluff. But you got to be excited about that. $13.25 million. That's no small investment.
Yes, sir. It is. It's truly just transformational, not only for this complex, for our museums, the museum district, our agency, and for our state, for all of our state parks. And this is just like a catalyst to getting things rolling. And so we're really excited.
Angel, so you're not from here. You're from upstate New York. What brought you here?
Yes, sir. My husband got a job for Mississippi State Extension out in Raymond, and he said, we're going to go to Mississippi for 2 years. And I said, really? Okay. Well, so we came down, and I saw the museum, and I was like, the only way that I am going to move there is if I get a job there at that museum and work for Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And so here we've been 16 years later. We're here. We're here for good.
Well, we chatted a little bit about this during the break, but when people think of upstate New York, they don't, in their minds, they might have a picture of big buildings like New York City and whatever, but there's a lot of similarities to the culture and the people there than to the people in Mississippi, isn't there?
Yes, sir. Lots of dairy farms and very similar to Mississippi. Just the weather's a little bit different.
Yeah, that is for sure. The weather is completely different in a lot of ways. Hey, Brian, where are you from?
I'm from the Mississippi Delta, born and raised, so I've been here all my life.
Where in the Delta?
A small town called Glen Allen, Mississippi, about 15 miles south of Greenville, Mississippi.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it because we've got a place in Mentor City.
Okay.
And we have another place. I released 3 farms, one in Shula, one between Greenwood and Blackhawk, and then one in Mentor City. And we duck hunt and deer hunt and just love being in the Delta. When you get Delta in your blood, man, it's hard to get it out, isn't it?
Very hard. I love it.
So, Deputy Director, tell me what a Deputy Director of the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, what your responsibility is.
So I'm on mostly on the administrative side. So I manage all of our IT services, accounting services, our license sales, and so generally the administrative functions of the agency.
Yeah, we've had an opportunity to chat about that on the show with various guests, but the fact is the pandemic taught people they could enjoy the outdoors and be safe in the outdoors. In your area of responsibility, you saw people increasing in numbers in terms of their enjoyment of the outdoors, didn't you?
Absolutely. License sales went up. Our parks have done great. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to start working in parks because more people have realized that our state parks is are beautiful locations. And I think they realized that they needed some work too, but this has been a great opportunity for us to just kind of enhance our opportunities to create outdoor recreation opportunities for people in the state and people who visit the state.
So it was actually hard to keep up with. It was almost a full-time job to track all these bills. Some of them passed, some of them didn't, but for the most part, there was tremendous agreement between the House and the Senate that big investments needed to be made in parks. Mm-hmm. And to be someone who's sort of staked your career on this part of our world, it had to give you a warm feeling to see so much alignment around the need to invest money.
Absolutely. We were a little, nervous coming into this session. This is definitely has been one of the most intense sessions that I remember. But, very pleased at the outcome. The communication that we had in both houses and including the Lieutenant Governor has been, I think, just was tremendous this year. And you can tell a lot of them had a lot of interest in focusing on state parks and the agency as a whole. So I think everybody did a great job.
Yeah, I had the Speaker of the House on last week and members of his team, and of course, Lieutenant Governor this week. Yeah, there's a lot of alignment around this, and I mean, I think, first of all, when you're in a situation where the state's doing well financially and we have all this federal money that's coming down, I mentioned this on numerous on my Coast View show, and then I've mentioned it here on Super Talk Outdoors, is probably one of the most consequential sessions in a very, very long time. And that's, Lieutenant Governor spoke about that just a few minutes ago as well, that he doesn't remember there ever being a session quite like this. So much to do. I mean, I have so much respect for legislators and the leadership of the state, because, sometimes watching the democratic process, it's hard. Democracy in action sometimes is hard. People say if you like laws and sausage, don't watch them get made. But but that's actually good. That means you have a lot of voices in the conversation. You have a lot of opportunity to find, the best approach to serve the majority of the people who obviously the legislators represent us. And you end up, when you think you're not going to get there, suddenly you start getting a tremendous amount of agreement, and the process just works. It's not pretty to watch sometimes. It's impossible to keep up with sometimes. But at the end of the day, we have a way of just landing where it needs to be. Now, this is a different kind of a session because of the money and all that was being talked about around that. But had it been a session where we weren't flush and we were having to cut, it would have been a much uglier scenario. So I like it this way much better than had it been a situation where we were underperforming, which could have been the case because of the pandemic, of course.
Right.
So, hey, what do you do in your day-to-day world, Angel?
So I am the director of the LaFleur's Education and Tourism Complex. And so the complex includes the Mississippi Children's Museum, the Museum of Natural Science, and then everything in between. So we just opened up our 30,000 square foot playground in December. We've had 60,000 visitors since December. So we average about 2,000 people a weekend. It's been just incredible. So I oversee all of that. And then obviously the planning, we've got lots of phases coming. And so just construction meetings, the day-to-day, and operations.
So as you know, the title sponsor for Super Talk Outdoors is the Foundation for Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And I know that playground was something they felt so strongly about. But that is a world-class facility, isn't it?
Yes, sir. I started that, planning that in March of the pandemic. When the pandemic began and we all went home, that's when we started planning that playground from the ground up. Every piece, turf, shade structure, color, you name it. So it was just to be in a pandemic and to have something so positive to focus on and our community to focus on, to see it being built. It was just such a positive thing for us and our community.
It's so cool that we had even in the pandemic, people were focused on doing things like that. And you go and look at Mississippi and how Mississippi performed as we sort of reopened our economy. Mississippi did really well. And one of the reasons why is because we have so much for people to do, not only for the people who live here, but the people who visit here. They felt safe. They felt safe coming to Mississippi and taking part in all that we have to offer. And tourism is a big, gigantic part, whether it's a staycation or someone visiting here, is a big part of our recovery as it relates to the pandemic. Hey, listen, when we come back, we're going to continue my conversation with two dedicated employees for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, Brian Ferguson and Angel Ronke. We'll see you after this break. Mississippi to this land called home. I'll breathe Mississippi till I'm dead and gone. Just carry on. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. As you've heard me say so many times before, when we talk about the outdoors, you certainly think about hunting and fishing, canoeing, but the truth is the outdoors includes so many other things. Anytime anyone can get into the outdoors and just take a deep breath, of fresh air, and enjoy it in so many different kinds of ways. It might be just driving through a state park and observing the spring, making the place come alive. It might be canoeing. It might be going to the LaFleur's Bluff complex and just taking in the incredible number of things there is to do there. So Brian, coming over to you, I've got Brian Ferguson and Angel Ronke from the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, and we're just chatting about parks and the overall opportunities we have in Mississippi to enjoy being in the outdoors. Where did you came from the Delta, Brian, but did you have a love for the outdoors early in your life?
I mean, of course, being in the Delta, but 80s baby too. So of course, there were no video games to be played. So outdoors is where we lived. So I grew up on a farm. So always outdoors doing things. And, I went to Mississippi State after that. So it was, just the experience of being outside has always been, growing up in the Delta is just one of the things that you do. So whole family's outdoors all the time.
You grew up on a farm, and everyone I talked to on this show who grew up on a farm, they learned how to work early in their life, didn't they? Did you?
12 years old. I remember, I likely remember, it's probably before that, but I certainly remember actually waking up at 4:30 in the morning and actually having a job at 12 years old. So outdoors, farming, is what we did.
Hey, let me tell you what, I didn't grow up on a farm, but my uncle, my father's brother, lived on a farm, and they raised horses and went on to raise cows and whatever. But I remember my dad said, "You're going to go spend some time with Uncle Harold this summer. You're going to have a couple of weeks up there." I said, "Great." That meant, I thought maybe that meant we get to ride the horses and whatever. So I get there, and the very next day, again, I was 12. The very next day, I said, "Well, what are we doing today, Uncle Harold?" He said, "We're going to go bale hay." And so that's what we did. And Brian, I almost died. I literally almost died. It was hot. And I'm like, this is what life on a farm is. I thought it was supposed to be this sexy, existence, but it doesn't work that way, does it?
Farming is why I went to college, I think.
Right.
So you're shaking your head too. Angel, were you around the farm when you were growing up?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I was. I grew up out in the country. I was outside from sun up to sundown, fishing and helping on a friend's farm. And, from a young age, I just wanted to have a job that, you'd be outdoors and love the outdoors. So, and it is, like Brian said, it's so important to connect children to the outdoors, because you think about our experiences as children, and there's just so many distractions these days. Like I have a 7-year-old, and he's wanting the Nintendo Switch and my phone. And so having to get them outside and, even if it is getting them to the playground or taking them fishing, it's just so important.
You know what? I went through a stretch of about 10 years where I never went hunting with my two sons. I have a daughter as well. She doesn't hunt. She loves to fish. But where I didn't even touch a gun, I just wanted to be with them. And now that I'm a little bit older, every chance I get to take friends, daughters or sons hunting or fishing, I love to do that. There's nothing more important than to inspire young people. And if you're talking about the archery program that the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks has, or any number of other programs that are involved in teaching safety and bringing kids into the outdoors, because once you hook them, Angel, you got them, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my producer Cal Curley, he loves to fish with his son, and I love when Kyle and I talk about how much they enjoy being together, because it's true, with smartphones and iPads and all this electronic media today. I think the best way to sort of get a connection with your kids is to get unconnected, and Brian, you hear this all the time, don't you?
Yes, I have two sons. I have a 20-year-old, and I can't believe I have a 20-year-old, but I also have a 13-year-old. So getting them outside is extremely important. And I think me and my wife focus this year is definitely on trying to get our kids outdoors. We're both, my oldest son and me, we're both military. So we spent a lot of time outdoors doing, military things, but my youngest son is struggling right now, just trying to. I think the younger the kid, the harder it is to get them out now. Just so many other things to do. So the playground has been a great opportunity. The people in Jackson and people in surrounding communities definitely need to get their kids there. This is a great opportunity for kids to just run around and play and just be outside.
Yeah. We're coming to the end now, but one of the great things about doing this show is the opportunity I have to reach deep into the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks and introduce and continue the conversations with a wide range of people who are dedicated. We're really lucky in this state to have so many dedicated people, whether it be in conservation or law enforcement, in your case, administration, all dedicated toward helping making sure that Mississippians and those who visit here have a chance to really take it all in. Hey, Angel and Brian, it's been a pleasure to visit with you this morning.
I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much.
Angels came here for 2 years and 16 years later have no intention of ever going back to upstate New York. Great to see you. Hey, listen, stay safe in the outdoors. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday.
Thank you.
Mississippi.